Ladies and gentlemen, it's so good to be with you today. I believe you didn't come here by accident. I believe God ordered your steps. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you showed up on this day, at this moment, for this message, because I've come to tell somebody, your waiting season is about to come to a close. You've been praying, believing, doing the right thing, but not seeing the results. You've been sowing seeds, staying faithful, walking through the valley with tears in your eyes, but I want to encourage you tonight. God is about to do a new thing. You may not see any signs. It may not look like anything is changing, but I've learned when it looks the quietest, God is often working the loudest. You've been in the background long enough. You've been patient long enough. This is your time for a sudden shift, a sudden favor, a sudden victory. God is not just going to trickle a blessing into your life. He's going to release it all at once. And what used to take years is going to happen in a moment. I believe and declare your suddenly is coming. So get ready. Stir up your faith, because the God who saw you waiting is the same God who's about to lift you into a season of sudden victory. There's something about the waiting seasons of life that can feel so heavy, so uncertain. We pray, we believe, we do our best to stay faithful, but sometimes the answers don't come right away. It's in these moments that we're tempted to think, maybe God forgot about me. Maybe my time passed. Maybe this promise just wasn't meant for me. But I want to remind you of something powerful today. Delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. God is a God of perfect timing. He's never early, never late. He's always right on time. And when He moves suddenly. You see, in the natural, waiting can seem like wasted time. But in the spiritual, waiting is preparation. While you're waiting, God is working behind the scenes. While you're staying faithful, He's putting the right people in place. He's shifting circumstances. He's strengthening your character. He's growing your roots deeper so you can carry the weight of the blessing that's coming. The longer the wait, the bigger the promise. God never makes you wait without purpose. Think about a seed planted in the ground. For weeks, sometimes months, nothing seems to be happening. But under the surface, there's movement. The roots are taking hold. The seed is breaking open. It's being transformed in a place no one can see. That's what God is doing in your life right now. You may feel buried, but you're not buried, you're planted. And if you'll stay faithful in the soil, in the unseen, in the silence, you will see a harvest. And not just an ordinary harvest, but an abundant, pressed down, shaken together, running over harvest. God's delays are not God's denials. They are divine pauses, intentional seasons designed not to punish you, but to position you. You may think you're stuck, but the truth is you're being set up. God knows how to orchestrate moments in your life where everything comes together all at once. The right opportunity, the right relationship, the right doors, the right timing, it will all align in such a way that you'll look back and say, only God could have done that. Sometimes we want the promise, but we're not yet ready for the weight of it. God loves you too much to give you something before you're able to handle it. So He'll use the waiting season to refine you, to stretch your faith, to teach you to trust Him, even when nothing makes sense. That kind of faith is what prepares you for sudden victory. That's the faith that says, God, even when I can't see it, I believe you're working. Even when it feels like nothing's moving, I trust you're aligning it all for my good. Waiting is not punishment, it's protection. There are blessings God has for you that are so great. He has to first prepare you to carry them with humility and wisdom. He has to develop your endurance so that when the pressure comes with the promotion, you won't fold. He's not withholding from you. He's building something in you. Because when He brings you into that victory, you won't just step into it, you'll be able to sustain it. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream as a teenager that he'd be in a position of leadership. But before the dream came to pass, he went through years of waiting, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. It looked like the dream had died. But God was using every step, every disappointment, every delay to prepare Joseph for what was coming. And one day, suddenly in a matter of hours, Joseph went from the prison to the palace. That's how God works. It may not happen gradually. It may not be predictable. But when the time is right, it will happen quickly. Your waiting is not in vain. Your tears are not unnoticed. Your prayers are not forgotten. Heaven has heard you. God has seen every sleepless night. Every time you stayed faithful when it would have been easier to walk away. Every time you worshiped when you didn't feel like it. And I want you to know God is not unjust to forget your labor of love. The waiting may be long, but the reward will be great. What you think is a delay is often just divine timing in disguise. Faithfulness in the dark is one of the most powerful tests of character and trust in God. It's easy to be full of faith when everything is going right, when prayers are being answered, doors are opening, and favor seems to follow you everywhere. But what about those seasons when nothing makes sense? When the lights go out, when heaven feels silent, when you're doing everything right and still not seeing the breakthrough? That's where true faith is revealed. That's where God watches closely. Because it's in the dark that your roots go deep. It's in the dark that God prepares you for the platform He's about to bring you into. And it's your faithfulness in those hidden places that qualifies you for His favor in the open. So many people want the spotlight, the recognition, the blessing, but they're not willing to endure the process that comes before the promise. They want the crown, but not the cross. But God does His deepest work in the unseen. The dark room is where the image is developed. You may feel like nobody sees you. You're working hard, staying obedient, keeping your heart clean, loving people who don't love you back, and there's no applause, no reward, no affirmation. But can I tell you, God sees it all. Every sacrifice, every act of integrity, every quiet decision to stay on the high road, He's taking notes. He's storing it up. And when the time is right, He will reward you openly. Faithfulness is not about feelings, it's about consistency. It's about showing up when you'd rather give up. It's about praying when you don't feel like praying, giving when you don't feel like giving, serving when no one says thank you. That's the kind of faithfulness that catches God's attention. That's what builds spiritual muscle. And that's what sets you apart for sudden promotion. You might be in a season where it feels like God is far away. You're not seeing growth. You're not hearing clear direction. You're wondering if you missed it. But sometimes silence is not absence, it's alignment. God is aligning you for something greater. He's watching how you respond when no one's watching. He's seeing if you can be trusted with little so He can trust you with much. Can you stay pure when you don't see a reward? Can you keep your heart soft when people overlook you? Can you keep walking in love when others are walking away? Those are the questions heaven is watching. David was anointed king as a teenager, but he didn't step into the throne the next day. In fact, he went back to the fields to take care of sheep. Nobody crowned him. Nobody celebrated him. But God was watching how he led in private before He promoted him in public. David worshiped in the wilderness. He fought off lions and bears when no one was looking. And it was that faithfulness in the dark that prepared him to defeat Goliath in the light. Some of you are in the fields right now. You're not on the stage, you're not in the palace, but don't let that fool you. God is testing your heart. And He's not looking for perfection, He's looking for persistence. You may feel like you're being overlooked, but you're not being ignored. Men may not see you, but God does. And when God gets ready to elevate you, no person, no system, no delay can stop it. We live in a culture that celebrates the big, the fast, the loud. But God often celebrates the quiet, the steady, the faithful. He looks for those who will serve in secret, give without recognition, love without limits. And when He finds someone like that, He pours out favor that no man can take away. His promotion doesn't come through popularity, it comes through purity. And purity is formed in the fire of waiting, in the furnace of obscurity, in the pressure of being faithful with little. Sometimes we think favor comes after success, but often favor comes after faithfulness. The open door is not the beginning of your victory, it's the result of all the decisions you made in the dark. Every time you held your peace when you wanted to argue. Every time you kept showing up when it felt like nothing was changing. Every time you forgave instead of holding a grudge. Those are the victories that qualify you for favor. Those are the moments heaven celebrates. Because anyone can be faithful when it's easy, but the ones who are faithful when it's hard are the ones God can trust with more. What looks like a setback is often a setup for a breakthrough. In the moment, it's hard to see it. It feels like everything is falling apart. The job you prayed for slipped away. The relationship you thought would last ended suddenly. The opportunity you were counting on dried up without warning. You start to wonder, God, where are you in this? Did I miss it? Was this not part of your plan? But what we have to understand is that God uses what feels like a setback to position us for something greater than we could have imagined. When you're in the middle of a trial, your perspective is limited. You're looking at the situation through natural eyes, but God is working with a heavenly strategy. He sees the end from the beginning. He knows where you need to be in 5 years, in 10 years, and He's aligning every step, even the steps that feel like failure. What you see is rejection. God sees as redirection. What you view as a loss, God views as a launch. Because in the kingdom of God, nothing is ever wasted, not your tears, not your time, not even your mistakes. Every closed door, every delay, every detour is part of the process. Sometimes the enemy will try to use a setback to discourage you, to make you think God's promise is no longer valid. He'll whisper lies like, if God really loved you, this wouldn't have happened. But God never promised we wouldn't face trials. He never said we wouldn't walk through valleys. What He did promise is that He would be with us, and that all things would work together for our good. That means even the things that don't feel good, even the painful seasons, even the disappointments, He's weaving it all into a greater story. Think about Joseph again. His life looked like one setback after another. Betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, thrown into prison for something he didn't do. From the outside, it looked like his dream had died. But what looked like a setback was actually a setup for his destiny. Every low place was positioning him for the high place. Every delay was preparing him for leadership. And at the appointed time, God brought him from the pit to the palace in one sudden shift. God specializes in turning what the enemy meant for harm into something that serves your purpose. He uses opposition as an instrument of transformation. That betrayal you experienced, it didn't break you, it built you. That closed door, it didn't block you, it protected you. That delay, it didn't deny you, it developed you. You're not going backward, you're being rerouted. Sometimes what looks like everything falling apart is actually everything falling into place. We often pray for the blessing, for the breakthrough, but we forget that the road to it usually goes through some kind of battle. The blessing doesn't always show up in pretty packaging. Sometimes it's hidden behind the pain, disguised as a setback. But if you keep walking, if you keep trusting, you'll see that what felt like the worst moment of your life was actually the beginning of the best chapter. God doesn't need perfect conditions to bless you. He can bless you in the middle of a mess. He can use broken pieces to build something beautiful. But you have to resist the urge to quit in the setback. Don't let temporary disappointment cause you to abandon a permanent destiny. Just because you don't see how it's going to work out doesn't mean it's not going to work out. God sees the big picture. He knows what connections are being made behind the scenes. He knows which hearts are being softened. He knows what doors are about to open. Some of the greatest shifts in life come right after the hardest setbacks. That's why the enemy fights you the hardest when you're closest to your breakthrough. He knows something is about to change. That's why the pressure increases. That's why the attacks intensify. But if you can hold on, if you can stay planted, if you can trust that God is still in control, even when everything feels out of control, you'll see the turnaround. You'll step into what God promised, and you'll realize that the pain wasn't pointless, it was preparation. God moves suddenly, but He prepares quietly. That's something we often overlook when we're in the middle of a long waiting season. We want God to act quickly, to shift things overnight, to open doors immediately. And while God absolutely has the power to bring about change in an instant, He rarely rushes the process of preparation. Before the sudden comes the silent. Before the breakthrough comes the building. It may feel like nothing is happening, but in reality, God is doing His most important work in the quiet spaces of your life. We often associate God's movement with dramatic signs, burning bushes, parted seas, fire from heaven. But many of His greatest works begin in stillness, in silence, in places where it seems like absolutely nothing is changing. That's because God values foundation more than speed. He wants you to be solid, stable, and strong before He suddenly launches you into the next season. And that strength comes from seasons of hidden preparation, where nobody's cheering you on, nobody's affirming your growth, and yet you stay faithful anyway. You might feel like you're stuck, like you're going in circles, like all your prayers are hitting the ceiling. But just because you don't see movement doesn't mean there's no momentum. Think about a tree in the winter. There are no leaves, no blossoms, no visible signs of life. But beneath the surface, the roots are growing deeper. The tree is storing strength. And all that unseen preparation is getting it ready for a sudden spring. The same is true for you. God is growing your roots, shaping your character, and setting you up for a moment of divine acceleration. Sudden moves of God often come after long stretches of what feels like delay. We read stories in the Bible where miracles happen instantly. But if we look closely, those sudden shifts were usually preceded by long seasons of development. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God spoke to him from the burning bush. Then suddenly God called him to lead a nation. David was anointed as a boy, but spent years tending sheep and running from Saul. Then suddenly he was crowned king. Even Jesus spent 30 years in obscurity before His 3 years of public ministry began. Then suddenly the heavens opened and the Spirit descended like a dove. The pattern is clear: long preparation, sudden elevation. We see the miracle and call it sudden, but heaven has been planning it all along. What feels like a sudden shift to us is actually a perfectly timed fulfillment of a process that God started long ago. That's why you have to trust Him when nothing makes sense. Trust Him when you're praying and not seeing results. Trust Him when you're serving and nobody's noticing. Trust Him when you're building quietly, when you're healing in silence, when you're doing the right thing with no applause. That's the kind of trust that sets you up for a sudden move of God. God is not slow, He's strategic. Every delay has a purpose. Every quiet season is loaded with preparation. He's refining your motives, stretching your faith, and positioning you to carry what He's about to release. If He gave it to you too soon, it might crush you. But when He finishes what He's building in you, you'll be able to sustain the weight of the blessing. You'll be able to lead without breaking, to carry favor without pride, to stand in victory without losing your dependence on Him. Some of the most powerful moments in life arrive without warning. One phone call, one open door, one divine connection, and everything changes. But God doesn't rush that moment. He waits until the appointed time. And when it comes, it'll be quick. You won't have time to prepare when it shows up. That's why you're preparing now. That's why this season matters more than you realize. Your discipline, your obedience, your consistency when no one is watching, those are the things God uses as the foundation for sudden blessing. It's easy to get frustrated in the silence. It's easy to assume God has forgotten. But silence is not absence. It's often the final stage before a shift. When it gets the quietest, that's usually a sign that something is about to change. Heaven doesn't always make noise when it moves. Sometimes it moves like a whisper, like a breeze, like a subtle stirring in your spirit that says, get ready. Not because you see anything happening, but because you sense something shifting. And when that moment comes, when heaven's timing aligns with your preparation, what once took years will happen in days. What once seemed impossible will suddenly become undeniable. Your obedience is unlocking doors you can't yet see. In the natural, it may look like nothing is happening, like your efforts are going unnoticed, but in the supernatural realm, every act of obedience is a key turning in a lock. Every time you choose to do what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something, you're putting spiritual momentum in motion. God doesn't require perfection, but He honors obedience. He honors the ones who say yes when it's uncomfortable, when it's inconvenient, when no one else understands. Obedience often looks small in the moment. It can be as simple as forgiving someone who hurt you, staying quiet when you want to defend yourself, serving behind the scenes when you'd rather be in the spotlight, or walking away from something good because God has called you to something greater. These decisions might not get attention or applause, but heaven takes notice. God sees every time you say yes to His voice, and those yeses are adding up, creating a path that leads straight to the doors He has ordained for your life. Many people want God's favor, but they don't want to follow His instructions. They want the breakthrough, but not the obedience that comes before it. Yet time and time again in Scripture, we see that breakthrough is always tied to obedience. When Jesus turned water into wine, it started with the servants following a strange instruction: fill the jars with water. When Naaman was healed of leprosy, it wasn't because he deserved it. It was because he dipped in the Jordan 7 times, like the prophet said. These were simple acts of obedience, but they unlocked supernatural results. Obedience is not about understanding every detail. It's about trusting God enough to move when He says move, to stay when He says stay, to wait when He says wait. It's easy to obey when the path is clear, but real trust is revealed when the instruction doesn't make sense. God might tell you to bless someone who mistreated you, to sow into someone else's breakthrough when you're still waiting on your own, to give something away that you feel like you need. And when you obey, even when you don't feel like it, even when it stretches you, you're proving that you trust His heart more than your own understanding. What you may not realize is that obedience creates alignment. It puts you in position for what God has already prepared. Sometimes we think we're waiting on God, but in reality, He's waiting on us to follow the last instruction. He's waiting for our obedience to match the magnitude of the blessing He wants to release. Every time you obey, you're stepping closer to that open door. You might not see it yet, but there are doors with your name on them, divine opportunities, connections, miracles just waiting for you to arrive through consistent obedience. The story of Abraham is a powerful reminder of this. God told him to leave his home, his comfort zone, his entire sense of security, and go to a land that would be shown to him later. Abraham didn't have the full map, he just had a word. And because he obeyed, not only was he blessed, but generations after him were blessed. That's the power of obedience. It doesn't just open doors for you, it opens doors for those coming after you. It sets generational blessing into motion. Obedience may not always bring immediate results. In fact, sometimes things may seem to get harder after you say yes to God. That's when you have to remind yourself that your obedience is not in vain. It's doing something in the Spirit that you can't see with your eyes yet. It's shifting things, it's breaking cycles, it's preparing the atmosphere for breakthrough. There are divine appointments, favor, provision, and answered prayers on the other side of your obedience. You don't have to figure everything out. Your job is to obey. Leave the results to God. He knows how to open the right door at the right time. He knows how to bring the right person across your path. He knows how to connect the dots in ways you could never orchestrate on your own. And the beautiful thing is, when the blessing comes, you'll be able to say, this didn't come by striving or scheming. This came because I trusted God and followed His lead. Obedience may not always be easy, but it's always worth it. It brings a peace, a power, and a provision that nothing else can. This is not just a new season, this is a divine shift into victory. There are moments in life when God doesn't just transition us quietly from one chapter to another. He initiates a shift so significant, so complete, that nothing looks the same after it. It's not just a change of pace or a new opportunity. It's a repositioning, a divine acceleration that launches you out of the old and into something completely new. It's not a gradual climb, it's a shift that moves you from the back of the line to the front. From waiting to walking in fulfillment, from surviving to thriving. You may have gone through seasons where you felt stuck, overlooked, delayed. You prayed and believed, but nothing seemed to change. Now all of a sudden, you can feel something stirring. It might not be visible yet, but deep inside, you know the atmosphere around your life is different. That's the sound of a divine shift. God is repositioning you for something you didn't even see coming. It's not because you earned it or forced it. It's because He has appointed this moment to launch you into your next level. A divine shift is different from human progress. It's not about what you can plan, strategize, or make happen on your own. It's a supernatural move of God that catapults you forward. It's when God says, enough is enough, and suddenly what held you back loses its grip. Chains break, doors open, new paths emerge, and what seemed impossible just one moment earlier becomes your reality in the next. That's what happens when heaven gets involved. These moments of divine shift come after long seasons of faithfulness, refining, and preparation. You've been praying, sowing, and staying consistent even when you didn't see results. But God never wastes obedience. He never overlooks faithfulness. In fact, He stores it up. And at just the right time, He releases the shift, the promotion, the healing, the opportunity. The breakthrough, it all begins to align not because of coincidence, but because God's timing has collided with your preparation. In the Bible, we see examples of divine shifts that changed everything in a moment. One day, Esther was just another young woman in the palace, and the next she was in position to save her entire people. One day, the disciples were ordinary fishermen, and the next they were called to change the world. One moment, Paul was Saul, persecuting the church, and the next he was radically transformed and called to build it. These were not slow progressions. These were sudden shifts. And they happened when God stepped in and redirected everything. What makes a divine shift so powerful is that it doesn't always make sense in the natural. It defies logic. It bypasses systems. It overrides qualifications. God doesn't need a committee's approval to bless you. He doesn't need man's permission to promote you. When He decides to shift you, no obstacle is too great, no enemy is too strong, no timeline is too late. He simply speaks the word, and everything changes. His favor will take you further in a moment than your effort could take you in a lifetime. This is why it's so important to stay sensitive to His voice. A divine shift often requires you to move in obedience, even when you don't understand the full picture. You might be prompted to walk away from something familiar, to step into something uncomfortable, to trust when there are no guarantees. But when you follow His leading, even when it stretches your faith, you position yourself for supernatural movement. Don't be surprised if things start to shake around you. A divine shift often begins with discomfort. Relationships may shift, plans may fall through, doors you counted on may close. But that doesn't mean you're losing, it means God is making room. He's clearing out the old to make space for the new. He's disconnecting you from what no longer serves you so He can connect you to what aligns with your destiny. This shift isn't just about you, it's about everything connected to you. When God shifts you, it blesses your family, impacts your environment, and creates a ripple effect that touches others. It's a victory that spills over, not just for your benefit, but for those around you. Your healing becomes their hope. Your breakthrough becomes their blueprint. Your testimony becomes their encouragement. That's how powerful a divine shift can be. You don't have to force it, and you don't have to chase it. All you need to do is stay in position, stay obedient, stay faithful, stay expectant. Because when the shift happens, it won't be small. It won't be subtle. It will be undeniable. You will know that it was nobody but God. You'll step into places you didn't apply for. You'll receive blessings you didn't even pray for. You'll see victory unfold not because of who you are, but because of whose you are.